Hello, welcome again to Connecting the Dots. I'm Dr. Claude Anderson, your host. I'm with you on a weekly program trying to bring some truth, some real truth, and show you where Black folk are, and how they got there, and what they got to do to get out of it. That's very unusual because most most social media is not going to do that. So always stay tuned every week to Connecting the Dots. Now, and we try to pick things anywhere between historical issues and present day issues, and to either go backwards and connect the dots or come forward and connect the dots, but all of them relate to anything that is substance and that would significantly impact Black Americans or Native Black Americans. Now, this week there was an article out where they're talking about Trump has gained among Black voters since the 2016 election. Why? And everybody expressing curiosity how Donald
Okay. Wait, can you hear me? You said the audio is perfect? Okay, it should be. All right, look, it's working now. Jeez Louise, dude. It seems like, oh, I know I gotta get back in the swing of things. All right. Yeah, like I said, ooh, uh, gotta get back in the swing of things. Get back in the swing of things. All right, like I said, let's just take it from the top. I'm gonna do a whole lot of movie magic for this stream.
Hello, welcome again to Connecting the Dots. I'm Dr. Claude Anderson, your host. I'm with you on a weekly
Host with
program
the
trying
most.
to bring some truth, some real truth,
Actual
and
factual truth.
show you where Black folk are, and how they got there, and what they got to do to get out of it.
Yes, sir.
That's very unusual because most most social media is not going to do that. So always stay tuned every week to
As a matter of fact, most social media is gonna try to disalign you with the truth and disalign you from your true and productive solutions. So
connecting the dots.
if you want the solutions that's best for you and your people, you're gonna have to figure that stuff out for yourself. Relying on social media, relying on media in general is likely to steer you in the wrong direction. Don't like always remember the for the most part, right? The intentions of media, the intentions of whatever's on TV is to keep your attention and to keep money in their pockets. So whatever they got to say, they'll say it to keep that money flowing. They have a business to run.
Now, and we try to pick things anywhere between historical issues and present day issues, and to either go backwards and connect the dots or come forward and connect the dots, but all of them relate to anything that is substance and that would significantly impact Black Americans or Native Black Americans. Now, this week there was an article out where they're talking about Trump has gained among Black voters since the 2016 election. Why? And everybody expressing curiosity how Donald Trump could have such a high negative rating among the general population, but yet why he's picking up some Black support. it's a very, it's very simple. It's very simple. If whether you're a politician or non-politician, there are two reasons. The first reason is because Donald Trump went back and picked up a lot of things that I put into a newsletter
Mm-hmm.
way back and was sent to Obama about what he should be doing in this country, in particular for black folk. That was
Uh-oh.
very important. Donald Trump picked up a lot of those things and used them in his campaign in 2016.
Uh-oh.
And then one of the major things he said,
Donnie, you can't just be you can't listen to Dr. Claude Anderson and you can't know who he is and ignore the solutions Dr. Claude Anderson is presenting. You feel me? This does say a lot about Don though, especially with that platinum plan. I know I'm in my last video regarding the platinum plan, and I did make note to wonder, right? I did pose the question that a lot of this stuff is falls in line with what Dr. Claude Anderson is kind of promoting. So, eh, so that, but let's not forget that platinum plan came long after I believe the 2016 election, which is what I believe this is kind of focusing this 2016 election.
and in doing it was this. He took this statement, somebody, Donald Trump asked black voters, you need to vote to me, but what in the hell else you got to lose? And he was right.
Yeah, he did say that during his 2016 election because like he was more or less making fun of the fact that we've just been voting Democrat our entire the past 100 so years or whatever. So he was poking fun of that. I don't know. Like, hey, there's some black folks that's happy with what Biden is doing, and there's a whole lot that's not happy about it. So, hey, vote with your wallets.
Black folk didn't have anything to lose in 2016. You know why? Because neither the Republican Party nor the Democratic Party was doing anything of substance for black folk.
That's true.
They never have.
That's true.
The Democratic Party is the original party was enslaving blacks all for 360 years.
That's true.
They were enriching themselves off of black labor and paying black folk out knew nothing. Where blacks were just suffering and slaves. No food, no clothes, no family, no land, no ownership.
No anything, but all the power, all the success went to the Democrats. Well, after I know blacks did vote Republican for a long period of time. Then I can't remember what year it was, but I want to say during the civil rights era, whatever year. It was FDR. I think it was Franklin D. Roosevelt that got the civil rights bill going. I hate to be wrong. Let me check real quick. I have the power of the internet at my fingertips. Who helped? Who was the guy that aligned with Dr. King? Okay. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was. Let me do one more search here. I'm actually gonna show y'all something pretty interesting. Voting for 200 years. Oh, my bad. It was Lyndon B. Johnson. There you go. So check peep game. See that? Did LBJ say I'll have those Negroes, right, voting Democrat for the next 200 years? It says unproven. It says unproven, but boy, is this heavily documented, or maybe you can use multiple sources kind of point that he has said this. Hey, if you want to believe this is unproven, go ahead and do your research. If y'all want, I can do a deep dive myself if you really want me to. But yeah, that's definitely something. That happened. He aligned himself with Dr. King and the civil rights movement, and more or less got black folks voting Democrat for going on 200 years.
Ownership, no wealth, no power, no resources, no rights, no privileges. And so that was a Democratic Party, the old Democratic Party. It was the same Democratic Party that stayed in existence all the way up until about the 1950s, when they decided to switch clothes and go and call themselves Republicans because they were totally opposed to social integration that was on the horizon going to come to the
Oh, let me
Democratic Party.
rewind that one
And
moment.
what
I
the
think I
real
missed the point.
conservatives,
Trying to look up this stuff about Lyndon B. Johnson.
and so that was a Democratic Party, the old Democratic Party. It was the same Democratic Party that stayed in existence all the way up until about the 1950s, when they
1950s.
decided to switch clothes and go and call themselves Republicans because they were totally opposed to social integration that was on the horizon going to come to the Democratic Party.
Okay, there you go. So that it was the 1950s when that big switch happened. Interesting. I know there's a lot of right wingers want to say this big switch never happened, and I never really believed it. I mean, you can kind of just look at you can kind of look at it. Look at the people. I mean, like I said, like the Klan were founded as were founded as Republicans, but I never heard it have anybody explain to me why this switch happened. And Dr. Anderson here explained it because they didn't like this social integration. So makes perfect. Yeah, that makes sense because I can see how they can align with whatever the Democrats have been more or less preaching around that time. But as soon as civil rights started to roll around, oh yeah, this things changed around. That I would say the civil rights era would be a good enough reason to get a large majority of racist people to turn coat, to change, essentially jump ship.
And what the real conservatives said is that we don't want to be in that party with those black folk that we've been enslaving for 360 years. So let's abandon the Democratic Party and become the new Republican Party.
Yeah.
And that's how so the new Republican Party is the old Confederate states from the South. And when you see a voting map, look at your voting map. All those red states in the South, that's the Confederate South. They boasted for years that the South would rise again. And they did. They rose. They rose under Donald Trump.
Okay.
And that's why they're back in power now. They say we're going to take back the power and take back all those things, and if we can, we're going to subordinate black folk back where they were back in slavery. And so they did get the black vote. They got it again because Donald Trump was neither a Republican nor a Democrat. He says, if you vote for me, you black folk, you haven't got anything to lose because you all don't have anything anyway. And therefore, he sort of suggested the possibility he's going to do something to help black folk. But up to this present time, Donald Trump has done absolutely nothing in the first 2 years to help black folk.
Yeah, so this must be 2018. This must be 2018 when he made this video. Let me go. I can go ahead and check it out right now. Let me do it. Let me go ahead and do that.
Nothing. I mean,
yeah, 3 years ago. 3 years ago. What we at? 20. This is 2020. Really? 2020. So this must be at the end of his run. Okay, well, let's see what else he says then. He might surprise me. Oh, this is so strange. So maybe unless he recorded this and then posted a year or so later. Yeah, this is 2020 when this aired, but he's talking about the first 2 years of his election. I believe Donald got elected president in 2016. And then he's talking about 2 years in, so that must be 2018. But this was posted. I don't know. Am I tweaking? 2020 was the last election, right? Yeah. So he probably just posted this. He probably recorded this a while ago, a while ago, and then he just posted it in 2020.
I mean, there are a lot of shovel-ready projects that blacks own and been trying to get implemented now for 2 years under the Trump administration. Nobody can even get to Donald Trump. He's not doing anything for black folk. But he's getting over because black folk still feel that somehow, since he's an independent, he's neither a Republican or a Democrat, which means he's not either one of those conservative bailiwicks. No, he's in the liberal bailiwick nowadays because the liberal ain't going to do a damn thing for black folk. No president in the history of the United States.
Oh, you got to be careful with this. Oh, my God. The liberal word has been crazy for me lately, man. Let me show you something real quick. This might surprise some people. Because I know this is kind of something I've been learning from the socialist crowd I've been digging around with, listening to, and all that stuff. We can use this one. Yeah, we use this one. Oh, Mr. T, how you been, baby? Let me check this out. Yeah, it's right here. Liberal. Definition. This is man. This has been it's been so annoying dealing with these definitions lately, dude. Okay, um, so a liberal is. Oh, I wish I could find out how to zoom in. Jeez, hold on. I think I'm gonna be able to figure this out. I literally have no idea how to zoom in. All right, whatever. I'm just gonna get a little closer. Liberal, generous. Wow. Okay, Webster's. Yeah, this isn't a definition. This is just like a liberalism vocabulary. Collins Dictionary. What's the road with this one, man? Yeah. So liberal, someone who has liberal views, believes people should have a lot of freedom in deciding how to behave and think. Then but there's other definitions though. A liberal politician or a voter is a member of the Liberal Party or votes for a Liberal Party. And then but it's more or less the definition I recall was like more along the lines of a uh, a progressive type person. Why isn't Google? Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. Jeez, that's also all I do is type the word in to get the definition I wanted. So yeah, liberalism is a political and moral philosophy based on the rights of the individual, liberty, consent of the governed, political equality, and equality before the law. Liberals espouse various views depending on their understanding of these principles. So there's that, right? So watch this. There's something called a neoliberal. And so, and this neoliberal is favoring policies that promote free market capitalism, deregulation, and reduction of government spending. Now, just I believe, okay, I could be wrong. This could be like the Mandela effect, but just a few months ago when I looked this up, there was no neoliberal word. It was more or less liberal, and then there was basically multiple definitions of liberal, and everybody essentially calling everybody liberals and stuff like that. There was like a problem. There was like it was essentially a problem being created that people were conflating both of these groups of people. You know what I mean? Because like I say, when you go on Fox News and you'll generally have a idea of what a liberal. Oh, I'm sorry. If you're a Fox News person, you'll understand a liberal is just some kind of progressive person, some woke person, quote unquote, or some person that just favors inclusivity and all of that stuff. Um, However, what I also found out was, especially when watching some videos and stuff like that, I've come to find out that this neoliberal word existed. You know what I mean? But again, a couple months ago, this neoliberal word didn't exist. It was actually they actually just called it liberal. But like it was more or less, yeah, favoring policies that promote free market capitalism, deregulation, and reduction of government spending. You know what I mean? And it's like for the most part, this sounds like a Republican type of thing, right? But it was more so, but it did make room for um, essentially questioning the status quo. You know what I'm saying? Like it believed in the capitalism, but it still understood capitalism to be flawed in a sense. But it was more so in line with the way people expose capitalism, or not expose, but use it. You use capitalism and maliciously to get over on the rest of society. Like capitalism in itself is a workable system. It just needs some more work in order to out the narcissists that take advantage of narcissism, that take advantage of capitalism. So that's why I identify it as for the most part, but it's apparently they've been changing the words around. They've been changing the meaning of words a lot, which I do want to talk a little bit about, because folks did try to change the meaning of the word woman, but they forgot to change the meaning of the word female. So it's a big mess. So I can't keep up with these word changes, and I can only imagine how hard it's been for our parents, right? Because they probably stuck on 1980s definitions, right? Probably 70s. So let's get back to the video, though. Where are we at? Yeah.
Has ever done anything substantially, specifically, and solely for help black folk. Never. Not from George Washington all the way up to Donald Trump. None of them. Black, white, the few black, never done anything for black folk. Mm-hmm. Now that defeats the whole purpose of politics. Politics is a very simple process that says, I will define for you on who's going to get the benefits out of life. It's based on a simple premise of quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Something for something. One hand washes the other. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
Yes, sir.
You vote for me, I'll support you and do something for you.
Yes, sir.
Black people are the only people that have never played politics to win.
Yes, sir.
And that's why they want it now supporting.
We play politics for inclusivity. Is that inclusivity? Maybe I should look that word up too.
Donald Trump. And politics, the present day politics didn't even come into existence until the 1500s. And it came in based on economics. Economics will control politics every time. Politics controls nothing. It's the economic base behind politics that controls it.
Yes, sir.
And so the same conservatives during slavery, they had all the wealth in the South. Most of the wealth of the nation was confined to the South during slavery.
Yes, sir. And that's what I'm saying. Like, in my opinion, right? If black folk want to rise to power, it is in our best interest to get that wealth up first. You know what I'm saying? With the wealth comes influence.
And that's why they were controlling politics for 360 years. Now, after slavery ended, then a lot of that wealth moved to the north. And so a lot of conservatives all over the north, they're still controlling politics. And in America, you got approximately 600 white multi-billionaires. That's who controls the politics. Trump just proclaims that he's one of them, even though he might not even be a billionaire, but at least he's figured that out. And so he says, I got the power. I'm in line with all these multi-billionaires, and I can do things for you all. And he gave that suggestion out, but he hadn't done anything. Prior to Trump getting elected to office.
My bad. I got Huey looking all short. My bad, Huey.
The typical vote for since 1960, when the whites shifted from the Democratic Party to become Republicans have not never gotten more than about 2%, only 2% of the national vote for the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. But back in his last 2016 election, based on his promise saying I suggested he would do something for black folk, and he used a lot of the things that I suggested in my articles, my newsletter in 2012 for Barack Obama. He picked up a lot of those things, and he said I'll do something for y'all, and so blacks went out and supported him. And the amount of vote he got from the black Americans at that point jumped from 2% up to about 9%. And that was a big jump. And ironically, that's the jump that made him the president of the United States. Yeah. Donald Trump got elected on the backs of native black Americans.
Yeah, he did have like a lot of he was making black folk like that's about it. You know what? He's right. He's onto something. Cause I remember watching what was that? I forgot the name of that program. It would I know Maj Toure, he was essentially hosting like a program, like a Republican convention, for blacks. Maybe it wasn't his program, but they gave him a section where he invited some majority black co-hosts and whatnot, like a predominantly black panel. That's the word I'm looking for. He invited Maj Tour invited a predominantly black panel to essentially discuss how Republicans can essentially reach out to blacks. And I mean, for the most part, it was more or less like, hey, come visit us. You know what I'm saying? Come to the hood. You know what I mean? He was like, because Republicans don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, Republicans don't come to the hood. They don't talk to blacks. They don't want to hear what blacks got to say on they don't want to hear our voice. You know what I'm saying? And he was more or less saying like, hey, just come out and talk to us, and you'd be surprised at the turnout. And Donald Trump, that's what he did. Like, he even though it was corny as a mug, like, he got a bunch of church folks on, and he got some black guys dancing, all that stuff, and Salt and Pepper was Salt and whatever them young ladies' names was. And then what's that? The conservative thug guy. No comment. Rest in peace. But yeah, no comment. He got all these black faces, right? And to essentially bolster his campaign, and it seemed like that worked. I mean, he said Dr. Claude Anderson says the black turnout went from 2% vote Republican to 9% under Donald Trump. Like, that's not like the biggest black representation ever. You know what I mean? It probably was the majority of the guys. I do know that a lot of men, black men, not a lot, man. It's still a huge majority of black men voting Republican. Like, don't get me wrong here, but this is the biggest turnout we've ever seen as far as black, black support for Republicans. So
in this country, that's where he got the vote from. That's the difference. That's 75,000 votes he got to make the difference. That's where he got it from. And now, but he has not delivered on black folk. Now people are saying, well, what we got to do to change it, or back to the Democratic Party? I'm not sure you'll ever be able to change it unless the Democratic Party, which now is the Liberal Party, quit playing games. See, the Democratic Party has never, the new Democratic Party that came in 1950 had never done anything significant black folk. They play all these ambiguous games about, well, we got to represent all people. Yep. All people is not your backbone of your party. The backbone of the present Democratic Party is 38% black.
Yep.
They have never done anything for black folk.
Yep.
They always talk about what they're gonna do for gays and women and Arabs and immigrants and Hispanics and Asians and midgets and everybody but black folk.
He be killing with the midget one. So, yeah, man. Ali just made a post. Ali just made a post about this, and I don't know if folks noticed or not yet, but I do believe I read that the Democratic National Convention are now not doing debates. They're not doing debates anymore. Wow. That says a lot for me. That says a lot to me, because this is what that tells me. This is what them not doing debates in the Democratic National Convention tells me. First of all, it tells me, well, when I put this out on Facebook, I noticed that nobody gave a damn. I had a couple comments, no likes, I believe. And yeah, I got a friends list of like over 1,000. I got over 1,000 friends on my Facebook, right? And I put it on the book. Hey, see, can anybody got to say anything to say about this? No, not a peep. You know what I mean? And the majority of my friends on Facebook are Democrats, right? But nobody cares. You know what I'm saying? But this is what this tells me. Last time, what happened? What happened? Okay, Kamala Harris. During like the later stages of like the Democratic side of the runnings and stuff like that, and the election and all that stuff, Kamala Harris made a pretty good case for Joe Biden being a racist. You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like he worked hand in hand with like a segregationist and stuff like that, and it made Kamala Harris job life a little bit more difficult. And she used herself as an example, right? And sound like, I mean, like I said, I mean, it was a pretty damn good case. But like Joe Biden ended up winning. He ended up beating out Kamala Harris, and he ends up turning Kamala Harris into his running mate or his vice president. You know what I mean? And it's like, it was just kind of weird, right? Because like just just like a month ago or whatever, you were saying like, hey, you're a racist, and you're making all these, you're kind of putting all this shade, throwing all this shade at Joe Biden, and then all of a sudden you turn around and find out that now you kind of kissing his butt. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of weird. Like, dude, like lady, like, I don't know. This just kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth, But on the other hand, on the Republican side of things, nobody's really throwing shade at each other. Nobody's really calling each other racist, even though they are racist. But they are not gonna sit there and throw each other under the bus like that. And I feel like Democrats have seen the error of what can come from having debates. Like, they essentially don't want to like shit on each other. You know what I mean? They don't want to give their enemies ammo, right? Which is bad. It's I can't the words on the tip of my tongue, I can't really think of it right now, but it's bad. What that tells me is they're more or less, it's a tactic of, how do I word this? Accountability. It's a way of feigning accountability, right? If they're no longer doing debates, right? This means that okay. I'm not gonna say it's completely absolving themselves of accountability. I can't say that per se, right? But what I can say is there's gonna be no more cases of them outing each other and throwing and holding each other accountable on a public platform, and that is bad, right? So that means that it's because like that's something I look forward to with the presidential debates and stuff like that. I wasn't like the biggest political person when I was a big gamer, but at the same time I always made time to check out that debate. You know what I mean? Because that's where that's where the action was, right? That was like the most important. That was like the most interesting part of the presidential elections and all that stuff. It was all about that debate. You know what I mean? But with these people doing less debates, if they're doing no debates on their side, like I said, in my eyes, it's them finding a tricky little way of moving out of like I said earlier, feigning accountability. It is, and like I said, there's a lot of people that don't believe in debates. I know, like I said, the left wing or the leftist space of YouTube, the bread tube guys, they don't like the debates and all that stuff for their own reasons. And so I'm not going to get into all of that, but ultimately, I think debates is a healthy thing. It is a good thing, and it's a way for everybody, especially politicians, the people that really do matter, right, to hold each other accountable.
So this year, that 9%, that 8 to 9% that switched and went over Donald Trump, they might not never see him again, because increasingly more and more blacks start becoming independents.
Yes, and which is a great thing. Which is a great thing. I strongly urge every black American to at least be independent. If we can't make our own political party, I strongly encourage all black Americans to be independent. What that means is you're on the fence, and the people that work the hardest will earn your vote, right? You're not automatically throwing your vote at one political party because they're your favorite. No, that's not how we're supposed to be voting. We're supposed to be paying attention throughout the entire process of the electoral of these electoral runs. We should be voting from the beginning to the very end, and not just at the very end, right?
Unless these political parties quit shucking and jiving. And what I would suggest to the black voters across this country, you make up about 38% of the Democratic Party. Start telling them, start demanding. You have never demanded anything from any party. Black
Not as a group, and we need to do this as a group.
American, the black voters have never demanded anything from either the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. They demand nothing, and that's exactly what they get. What you got to say now is that, okay, if we're going to pull out of both parties and say,
Man, my bad, Huey. This dude mad at me, man.
Democrat or a Republican.
Sorry,
We
Huey.
don't care about either one of it. We're going to create our own black independent party. And when we create it, we're going to vote as a block
Yeah,
across this nation. Well, we're going to vote strong for nationally, maybe 27%, about 25 or 27% national base, and the Democratic Party itself, about a 38% black base. And so we're going to vote for whoever promises the most and delivers the black vote. And if nobody do it, we'll do it. We're going to create a black independent party. We're not going to run into candidates shuck and jive like most of you do. We're going to simply say we were promised to vote in a block for whoever promises the most and delivers the black vote in tangible terms. We're not going to vote any longer for anybody promising all these platitudes about we got to move to be higher engine. We got to save the world. We got to save the nation. We got to save poor people.
we gotta focus on ourselves first. Like black people are, for as long as if we've been in America, we should have a much higher standing. We should have a much better share of the United States wealth than what we currently have. So I am with them I am with them in saying that we need to be voting for our own interests primarily. The interests of these global interests that Joe Biden and the rest of the Democrats have been participating heavily in. It's cool and all of that stuff. I'm not gonna go on record and say I'm completely against it, but I don't like the idea of them putting those other people ahead of black Americans.
We got to save the crippled, deaf, and blind. Has nothing to do with black folk. Black folk have never, never,
I know,
never
right?
voted on their own self-interest. They always wanted to vote on a very simple premise. There are two kind of voters. There are those who are in politics and who understand the nature of politics. Politics, if you're going into the voting arena, it's a race, it's a contest, and in that race, people vote for two kind of either for the strongest, or they voted for the ones who the thoroughbred horses, like in a horse race, whichever horse is going to come in first, second to place.
Yeah.
And so most people vote along those lines, but except for our people, black people, they're not in the thoroughbred. They don't get their vote for self-interest about who's going to come in first. They get over and vote on the other side. The other side of the common vote you call jackass. They just vote for anybody. Whoever did promise nothing to them, they'll vote for them and carry their water. There's an old saying in farming which says, the biggest fool will carry the heaviest load. So I tell black folk, quit carrying everybody else's load. Quit voting for everybody else. Vote strictly for your own self-interest first.
Yes, sir.
That's what Jews are going to do. Jews are going to vote for whatever's in the best interest of Jews.
Be careful with that one, Claude. Be careful there, buddy. You're going to get demonetized.
Arabs going to vote for in the best interest of Arabs. Hispanics going to vote for their best interest.
And boy, Hispanics are definitely doing that. Look what they're doing in Texas. Again, they coming together. They coming together and they're voting Republican down in Texas, man. They're heavily helping out DeSantis, man. Like the guy's just Latino. That's all they need. You know what I'm saying? And here they come voting Republican. I mean, it's something else. They probably. I mean, DeSantis are probably. I'm not. I'm about to make a. I'm thinking about to make a joke, but no, I have heard of Latinos supporting building the wall. So it's like, these people, like, I don't know. I personally don't know what they're offering them. You know what I'm saying? But that's what's going on here. I mean, I know in Chicago we're doing a big thing where we're inviting Latinos into the communities and helping and I know in Chicago, we're the mayors have been not just Lori Lightfoot, but also Brandon Johnson are essentially inviting Latino or some Mexicans or into Chicago and just helping them out. You know what I mean? What I do like about Brandon Johnson, which is something that we didn't hear from Lori Lightfoot, is he does plan on helping blacks, not just Mexicans or Latinos, but also blacks in Chicago also. So hey, if you can find a way to help both communities, then hey, I'm cool. I'm completely fine with that. Like I said, you're not gonna hear me being. I'm not gonna preach anything that's anti anybody else. I just don't like when blacks are left behind because that's essentially what's been happening throughout the history of the United States of America.
And everybody, the women are going to vote for their best interest. Everybody would do it except black folk.
Yeah.
Because see, black folk don't understand the game, playing the game. They let a lot of tricksters trick them in the wrong way, saying, well, you shouldn't go vote for any along the lines of your self-interest. You should be willing to vote for any and everybody because you don't know the world might get blown up or the economy might collapse.
Yeah.
This is what black folks should be saying. That's fine. That's fine. If somebody in a political party want to blow up the world and depress the economy, let them do it. Let the people who have the most to lose worry about the world being blown up, what's going to be lost. Black folk are only 2% of the wealth in the nation. That is the least thing that you should be worried about. Don't be worried about, let those who got the most to lose, let them worry about saving the world. You worry about how to save black people in this country.
Yes, sir.
Black folk have about a $1.3 trillion annual disposable income. You learn how to start practicing group economics in a race-based society.
About group economics. I think a lot of that is going to have to come from the co-op or the cooperative help with the cooperative allegiance or alliance. I'm not saying it correctly. I think a lot of the group economics is going to have to come by way of the poor blacks being helped by the elite blacks. I think some people like to call them the boule, what do you want to call it? But the elite blacks, that's essentially like the powerhouses of entertainment and stuff like that. I'm just saying, like I do, and I am aware that there's a lot of help. There is a lot of help from a lot of rappers, some athletes, entertainers in general. They are helping, right? But in order for us to really push this thing forward for like it's essentially recreate Black Wall Street, right? Because that should be like the whole goal of Black Americans. It's gonna, like I said, it's gonna come from the elite. You know what I mean? It's gonna have to be a big push from the elite side of the elites amongst our communities, amongst our culture. And I don't like what else are they doing with their money, man? You know what I mean? They buy these massive houses, they buy all these luxury cars and boats and stuff like that. They buy jewelry and stuff, but like they don't. I mean, you feel me? Like they don't want to really give back to the community, man. They don't want It's not just. I don't want to say give back to the community. They don't want to build the community, right? That's what we should be focused on. But hey, it's just a suggestion.
A race means you're competing, and quit listening to people tell you that in a race you're supposed to be concerned about equality. There is no equality in a race-based society. There's no equality in a foot race.
Never will be.
A horse race, a bicycle.
I mean, dude, it won't be equality. It will never be equality. It's literally impossible. It will never, ever, ever freaking happen. White folks make up around 60% of the United States population. Black folks make it about somewhere between 12 and 14%. Maybe just a smidge higher, since we know a lot of black folks don't want to participate in the U.S. Census. And then other genealogies of people or ethnicities are even lower than that, or maybe a little bit higher if you want to talk about Latinos. United States will never be equal. The population size alone won't allow that to happen. So it's in everybody's best interest to just look out for themselves primarily, unless you're white, because y'all already the shit. Y'all already got a lot going on, and y'all already in charge. They're more or less gonna look out for themselves regardless. They're already completely covered already. Like again, they're 60% of the United States population, and they hold 90% of the wealth. And so, like, if they don't, like, if they're rich, don't want to help out their poor, then I mean, I don't know. That's on them, but that's not gonna stop. That shouldn't stop other groups of other nationalities of people for fighting for their groups.
That's like a race, an automobile race. Nobody's going racing for equality. They're racing to create inequality.
Mm-hmm.
They want to know who's everybody stars out, but whoever comes in first wins. But only
Yeah.
black people be taught.
Whoever comes in first wins, and what I will correct them. I'm gonna correct them into saying this. It's not necessarily whoever comes first wins. It's who's the last to laugh. You feel me? It's the group of people that is the last to survive, because because when ish hits the fan, whatever that may be, it could be a meteorite, right? It can be anything. Whichever group of people has the resources to build a rocket ship to fly off the planet and settle on Mars, which is what they're working on. Which is what they're working on. Pay attention to what Elon Musk has got going on. They're trying to make a rocket ship just exploded that was supposed to be powerful enough to land on Mars vertically. You know what I'm saying? And it was supposed to be it's supposed to have a fit. It was supposed to be large enough to fit 100 people and transport 100 tons of cargo, something along those lines. But yeah, they're working on intergalactic travel. You feel me? So I'm just putting it out there. Whichever, when ish hits the fan, whomever has the most resources will essentially will win this race. You know what I'm saying? But the race isn't necessarily who finishes first; it's who laughs last.
Well, you got to get in this race, but you keep looking back and try to make sure everybody's staying with you and y'all come in together. That is foolish. That has nothing to do with politics.
Yep.
Politics decides who will get what benefits. We have not been getting benefits all these years because we keep trying to look for equality.
Yeah.
Among in a race, it cannot be done.
Yeah, and it's not just equality for us. A lot of us. I mean, if we're gonna align ourselves with certain groups of people, I want to say. I mean, it could be Democrats or Republicans. I mean, Republicans will argue that they're arguing for equality also, right? They'll tell you that. But what they just don't understand is there's a thing called equity and there's a thing called debt. You feel me? Yeah, they're not trying for fairness, right?
Because unless you redistribute the resources in the black folk hand, there'll never be any equality.
Right.
But that's the whole nature of politics, is to be able to get benefits. Don't let anybody tell you that when you go to vote this coming year or in the fall for the next president, that you should be voting based on exercising your rights.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go to the poll to exercise rights.
Yes.
You go to the poll to get benefits. Benefits. You don't go there to exercise any rights. If you want to get exercise, go to the gymnasium, take out a membership. Or you put on your jogging clothes and jog around the park someplace.
Yeah, get some gains. Get some gains. Go if you want to exercise, go outside and get some gains. Lift some weights. That you want to exercise, do that. But exercising your right to vote, nonsense. This is gonna be a hot take. Be prepared. Be prepared. This is gonna be a hot take, and I apologize for making people mad. All right, but this is how I feel about this. So. This is how I feel about this. So, exercising your right to vote. No, check this out. If you're not gonna follow, how do I word this? You have to vote effectively. You can't vote because somebody told you to vote. Don't do that. You're wasting everybody's time. You're not necessarily just wasting your vote. You're essentially making it harder for the people that actually vote for a purpose. You feel me? Because if you go along and just vote because somebody told you to vote, if you going along to vote because somebody told you, or if you're going to just vote for somebody that somebody else told you to vote for when they themselves don't have a real purpose of voting, you feel me? Then again, you're only missing, like you're making it harder for everybody else that actually take voting serious. So when it comes down to it, if a If we actually started a black party, and the only way for the black party to I'm sorry, the only way for the person that represents the black party to be elected effectively, in order for this thing to work, right, we're gonna have to put every serious voter into this individual, right? We have to really push them forward, really take so he can take off, so he can essentially have a fighting chance against like the more powerful Democrats and more powerful Republicans. Unfortunately, if there's just too much, I mean, it's really just the media, man. Like the main reason all this money needs to be dumped into these political campaigns, into this exposure, into all these the travel and all that stuff, is because the rich and all that stuff, like the more powerful, the more visible politicians are the ones with the bread, right? But the people that really the people that really want to see the right changes happen seriously seek out the right candidates for the they seek out the right politicians to represent them in these elections. But unfortunately, dating back from the beginning of politics, the more popular guy wins. And it's not, and unfortunately, the more popular guy isn't necessarily the person that's actually best for the job. He's just the most popular. You feel me? And that's more or less the biggest problem with politics. That's like the biggest issue with all this right now. It's a popularity contest, but it's not necessarily a contest of actual skill and merit, right? Or moral compass. It's the guy with the most bread. That's the guy with the most availability to sit down with all of these people and it can convince them of why they're the best guy. And I feel like there's a problem in that. So the reason I say this is because it is to the fault of the voters that's voting for the sake of voting, of why we can't get proper people into these seats. If you want to vote, you need to take you need to do your proper due diligence. You need to be voting from the very beginning. You feel me? You need to find the right person that best represents you and your group, and stick with that person through thick and thin, and not just vote for him, but also bolster him. Spread awareness of this person. Let him like, if I were to vote for president, if I were to run for president, I need everybody to essentially talk about me. Let the will of the people bolster or be my advertisement. You know what I'm saying? Because if you understand me to be like the best guy for the job, it should be to the will of the people to elevate that person to the highest pedestal. But just giving the job to the guy that you like the most because he has the prettiest smile, or he kisses the babies and all that stuff, is complete lunacy. It's horrible way of going about voting. And again, stay home. If that's the way you're gonna vote, if you're gonna just vote for a blue donkey or a red elephant, stay home. You need to understand who you're voting for, and you need to understand the things that person is willing to is putting in place once he gets that seat. It's the only way this stuff is gonna work. My opinion.
You want to exercise, but never go to the darn polls talking about you want exercise. Or they said what others said with Dr. Anderson. Okay. I think that's bad advice, because a lot of
I'm going to exercise my right to not exercise. Okay, Chief. Okay, Chief.
People gave their lives for the right to vote. No black person ever intentionally gave his life up for somebody to vote.
Yeah.
He may have had his life taken from him. He didn't voluntarily allow himself to be killed just so he can have a right to vote.
Claude Anderson's a really funny dude, man. He takes like these really throwaway talking pieces, and then he just flips it on his head. He kind of does this a lot. Yeah. Nobody, yes, literally nobody died for. I think that's what it is. He just take these little throwaway talk pieces and makes takes it into like a more literal stance. I rock with it. He's right though, and he's making a serious point. So, I mean, how you argue against this?
As a matter of fact, the only people in this country that were given specific rights to vote for a short time that came out of the radical Republicans. That only lasted for about 10 years, from 1865 to 1875, and that was destroyed by when the Democratic Party and the Republican Party merged again to kill off all those benefits.
Yeah.
That's why Reconstruction only lasted 10 years.
Yeah, in case he doesn't talk about it, he might be a radical Republicans were essentially a group of Republicans whom were white, who actually had some black mistresses that got in their ear, right, and convinced them to start passing pro-black regulation or pro-black legislation, right? They are a group of Republicans whom had some black mistresses, right? Whom convinced them, persuaded them to pass some pro-black legislation. God bless those queens.
And then during that course, that period started in 1865, they gave you the 15th Amendment to vote. Nobody else had been given the right to vote. Why not? It's simple. You see, whites in general, anybody come to this country who can pass as whites, got their right to vote in the first through the 12th Amendment. They got their rights to vote. They didn't have the rights. Only one of the others was pushing for rights to vote were women for a while in the 1850s, but even they had a right to vote, but they couldn't. Most of them couldn't vote because they didn't own property.
Yep.
To be able to vote, you had to own property.
Isn't that amazing?
Throughout history, that all the rights that whites needed was in the 1 through 12th Amendment. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment went into existence strictly to correct the Dred Scott decision to give rights to black folk. That was the purpose of it.
Yep.
They can go vote. That was the 15th Amendment in 1868. Now here black folk are still going out there talking about suppression of the black vote and who can't vote here and who can't vote there. Are they blocking your right to vote? Are they changing the ballots and throwing and jamming the votes? All this kind of stuff. Forget that. Go look at the 14th Amendment and the second article there. It gave you what I call a nuclear option. It's never been used. The nuclear option in my black labor white wealth and in the Black History Reader, it tells you got an option that's never been exercised. That if anybody blocks your right to vote as a black person, if you understand that the 13th, the 14th, and 15th Amendment was strictly for you, you can go and challenge anything they want and throw out the whole darn election. Go look at the second article in the 14th Amendment that was written strictly solely for black folk. But again, it's going to be hard for you right now because you've been bamboozled by civil rights leaders, black elected officials, and the Supreme Court and other court systems saying, well, those rights are for everybody. And if it's for everybody, you black folk can't use it. But if you're that big a fool and you keep playing around, you're going to lose in politics. You got to go there and vote for your own self-interest. And if you can't get it for the Democratic Party or Republican Party, then build your own independent party and vote as a bloc for your own interests and on whoever promises the most and delivers the most to black folk. That's the way you win in politics.
That's the way you win.
Pro quo, something for something. Don't vote and get nothing. If you ask for nothing and you demand nothing, that's exactly what you're going to get. That's it on vote.
Boy. Yep.
I'll see you at the next.
Yeah. Tell them, Dr. Clausen. Yeah, man. Quid pro quo, man. They got to scratch our backs first before you vote for them. Simple as that, man. Got a couple more videos to go through here. But yeah, straight facts, bro. Ooh, excuse me. Yeah, straight facts, man. But yeah, more or less, but yeah, that's more or less what happened with Trump, man. He got the big black folks messed with him because he actually put black folks in his there was some black representation in his cabinet. You know what I'm saying? Even though there's a lot of bunch of corny dudes and it wasn't a right crowd, but he has some black visibility in his corner, right? So well, if Republicans want a fighting chance at winning the next election, it's in their best interest to bring to make us part of the discussion. You know what I'm saying? We went from 2% to 9%. It's dope. So anyway, we got another one here. Black Opportunities Part 1. If we got time, we can do a Part 2 also.
This is a special channel. Unlike any other channel, we're not a fake channel. When the Bible says things that you are admonished to do is to first get knowledge, but more importantly, get understanding. When you come to this channel, you get some of both. We give you everything you need to know about race matters, from the history in the old days, 460 years ago, up until the present time, where daily events appear in the newspaper and on television. Come here and get it straight. There's no drinking like alcohol with fake fillers in it. You get it straight without the fillers. And but again, I have to tell you, we say nothing that we hopefully would be race-based. We try to simply tell the truth as we know it. So come here to this channel and get the real scoop on the YouTube channel, Connecting the Dots with Dr. Claude Anderson. Now today, we're going to talk about something that I think is very important to you, but there's so much to say about it that I'm going to put it into two parts. Let's start off with part 1.
Notion has been the centerpiece.
It's not part 1. This is some BS.
It's quite literally an extension of my brain. I can take notes, create folders.
And I'm
I can hit the skip button.
10 to 20 things that are very important to black folks to know in solving race matters. These are the devices used to maintain the racial status quo in this country. So let's get about it. Let's start with the first thing. What's the first thing they do to make sure that black folk stay in an underclass position, just as you were doing slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery? Give me the number one thing they would do. First thing they would do is this. They always use very broad and ambiguous headings or terms to confuse black folk, to mislead them, to misdirect them, so they won't know what's going on. Now, this is not an accident. This was first created and used and implemented in 1879.
Okay, so there's gonna be some things that I think I know what he's gonna be referring to. What he's referring to currently. What's that? It's a word. It's on the tip of my tongue. Starts with a C. Oof. It's gonna come to me later. But the idea is when you use broad, ambiguous terms to confuse people, and this happens a lot. This happens in regular conversations also. And this is I wish I could just come up with like some sort of a master class on how to freaking talk to people. But like when you kind of sit down and like listen to people's debates and stuff like that, you kind of become, if you kind of more or less spend a lot of time like in like the whole debate bro culture and all that stuff, and just kind of learn like the nuances and learn a lot of the terminology that they kind of pass along with each other. Just pay attention, right? You kind of see what people tend to do and what other people call out, right? There's a thing we call arguing in bad faith, right? When you're how do I word this? If you're trying to make a point, right, and you're trying to speak on a group of people, it's best to be as specific as possible, depending on the situation, right? If you're too vague, right, that can essentially cause a lot of confusion, and it causes a lot of confusion by way of, and this comes that word I can't freaking remember, but it's gonna come by way of people getting confused as far as what it's like the target, like you're supposed to be speaking to a specific group of people, But since you're being too broad and too general, and whatnot, there's gonna be like adjacent minded or adjacent to the persons that's gonna get swept up into the conversation. So so when we talk about black people and they say colored folk, that can mean anything to do with that could be anything. That could be the Latinos. That can be Asians. It can be minorities in general, right? If you were to say black, um, well, you don't necessarily know whom exactly you're talking about. That's why a lot of the conversation now is found or black people that was descendant of slaves, right, have to create a new term to self-identify. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, we're gonna get lumped together with the people that with the blacks that came over from Africa or blacks from other parts of the world. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to like government benefits and stuff like that, that should be allocated directly to Black Americans, or I'm sorry, blacks descendant of slaves. Uh, they essentially the funding for this specific group of people will get swept will get essentially watered with it'll get watered down by helping out other blacks that aren't descendant of slaves, right? So that's just an example, whatever. But that's more or less the problem when you kind of you when you're too broad and you're too generic with your messaging. Like we can take here's another example, women now, right? Apparent like now, whether you're kind of aware of it or not, women are gonna have to be more specific when it comes to uh, what type of women we're talking about. You know what I mean? Because trans women wants to be called just flat out women now. You know what I mean? They want to be just called. They want to be called women, right? And women that were born female, right, are gonna have to find a way to self-identify. And the cis women thing is not really catching on for a lot of people. Birthing people is not really catching on for a lot of women. And a lot of women want to be called to flat out women. You know what I mean? But if you're gonna come out with like a plan or like a solution for women, you're gonna have to specify which women you're talking about. You know what I mean? Are you gonna talk about all women? Well, you're gonna have to say all women. But are you gonna talk about cis women? You gotta find some way to identify yourself. And black is not really a yeah, it's not the term that foundational Black Americans should be relying on, right? Um, and so on, and same thing goes for other Black people from other nationality groups.
I mean, 1789, when they were drafting the United States Constitution, and they met up in Philadelphia and said, we're going to craft a constitution. And but what we're going to do is create a new democracy. We're going to attract people from around the world to come here for new opportunities and new freedoms and new rights. But to do that, we got a problem. How we're going to do that at the same time our purpose is in building this country is to use black people and their labor to do it. If we craft a constitution that says we are the cradle of democracy, wouldn't we be hypocritical if we say we're going to build a nation with freedom and opportunities for everyone? At the same time, we're preparing ourselves to enslave millions of black folk. And so what they did in the Philadelphia meeting, they closed the doors, pulled the shades, put guards on the doors, and said, we got to come up with a scheme on how we're going to best do this. And finally, after a week of talking, discussing, debating the issue about how to craft a constitution, the first constitution of the United States, at the same time, use it as a basis for enriching immigrants coming to America. How are they going to do that? They said, here's what we'll do. In the Constitution, we use two kinds of language. We'll have some terms, broad terms we use that specify and particular to whites. We use other terms that will be specifically designed to identify blacks or the black slaves. That's what into the Constitution. And then if you read the Constitution, most people don't understand that ambiguous language and broad terms and how they're being used to maintain race matters. That's the first advice they used. So what they would say in the Constitution, it says things like this: we the people, When they talk about we the people in the Constitution,
Talking
that
about whites.
signifies it's for white people.
Yeah.
They say all the people, they're talking about white people.
Hmm.
When they
Oh.
say American citizens, they're talking about whites. When they say all people got a God-given right, they're talking about whites. And when they get to black folk, they have different language. And how was the language spelled out? They use very broad and ambiguous terms like this. When they say, well, let's talk about black folk, what we say is that those who are indebted.
Epidemic Sound is basically a royalty-free soundtrack company. So it's where I go to when I want to get my...
I don't care about your royalty.
Those who in...
How's it royalty free if it's... How is it royalty free when you gotta pay a subscription? Don't yeah, all right, lady.
Bondage. Those who have those who are property. Those who are 3/5 of a human being.
Oh, good. So it was true there.
Those who are
3/5 of a human being. Give me a break, government.
non-citizens. Those that specific kind of property. And those who are equal to a field animal, and those who are 3/5, as I said, those individuals they're talking about are black people.
Got that right.
Slaves, but it's so smoothly put into the Constitution that most people don't pick it up, and that's why in our civil rights movement in the 1960s, and I heard blacks out saying we got our constitutional rights, and we are here to ask this country to deliver on those rights that were spelled out in the United States Constitution. The United States Constitution didn't spell out any rights for black folk. It was strictly and solely for whites.
Yeah.
And but I want you to understand that those broad ambiguous terms were put into the first Constitution, and they did the same thing when they wrote the second Constitution. And the second Constitution came out of the 1857 Dred Scott decision, which says a black man has no rights that a white man is bound to respect. And but they used that language again and said when they wrote the second Constitution in 1861, because to pick up where the Dred Scott decision left off. When slavery had ended, you had a few very liberal white congressmen or radical white Republicans who says, we got to do something for black folk.
Yeah.
And so we're going to write a second part of that Constitution, because the first Constitution was covered by amendments 1 through 12. Let's write an additional Constitution to let's call it 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment and civil rights laws. They wrote those specifically and solely for black folk. But in doing that, they tried their best to try to broaden those terms, analyze those broad terms that were in the first Constitution and be more specific.
Thank you.
And they put some of them in that 13th, and 14th, and 15th Amendment. And they did still use a few broad terms because the radical, non-radical Republicans were opposed to them trying to free black folk, because you see the South needed black folks again to re-enslave them in the South under peonage and Jim Crow segregation. But they wrote the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment and the civil rights laws using those sort of semi-broad terms. But then later on, the Supreme Court then justified making those things even broaden them even more by saying, yes, those amendments is in there, but don't worry about it. It's for everybody. Mm-hmm. And the rule in politics is anything that's for everybody, it's not for anybody. People. So whenever you hear anybody in politics and economics in our race-based society using very broad, ambiguous terms like minorities, poor folk, people of color, multicultural, diversity, they are using terms to make sure that nothing happens specifically and solely for black folk.
Yes.
They use those terms to keep
yes.
black folk down and
yes.
keep them out.
Yes.
So anytime any politician in economic programs or policies or in political policies use those very broad, ambiguous terms without being specific about correcting the dilemmas of black folk in America, you're being sandbagged.
You got that right.
And you tell them, no, we're not going for that. Anything that's coming down the road for black folk must be very specific. Do not let them use the old game that they used in the Philadelphia Convention by using these very broad, ambiguous terms. You say it's like a fish. You fillet it, open it up, and say, what's inside of minorities? What is a minority? Open it up, let's see what's inside of it. Or what's in people? How can black folk be people of color? Make them be specific.
Make them be specific. You got that right.
Those very broad, ambiguous terms. That's the first advice they use to make sure nothing changed for black folk in the country and stay just as it was in slavery and in Jim Crow semi-slavery. What's the second thing they use to maintain the status quo in black? Second term, they use this whole myth about a colorblind society. There is no such thing as a colorblind society.
No
That
way.
term was never used until
Absolutely not.
about 1896 in the Plessy v. Ferguson decision with the United States Supreme Court. And they used it, that was the first time that word people of color was used, or being colorblind. And so they tried to use that to try to justify, again,
Yeah, this is like I believe it was like a ploy to disguise their racism as more or less trying to pass it off as business, right? It's not. We're not doing this to you because you're black, right? We're doing this because business, right? Like this is that blacks at that time, even now, obviously, blacks just didn't have the means, right, to compete, right, with white folk, you know what I mean, or other privileged groups of people during that time, right? So like from a business sense, it didn't make sense to give blacks preferential treatment. So especially honest loans, you know.
What's up?
Hi, Jira.
Chicken butt.
We brought you here today.
not doing anything specifically for black folk. But one of the members of the Supreme Court, Justice Harris, says that this nation should be a colorblind society. And but that was just a hypothetical situation he was proposing. Everybody knew that this country is always very color specific, always color specific. They knew exactly who they were enslaving. They knew what color they were when they enslaved them. They knew they were blacks, but somehow they convinced black folk to say, "Be colorblind, pretend that you can't see color," and that way you'll never solve the problems because they knew what color they used to enslave you. They got to know what color to use and pick and choose when coming out. But black folk go for it. So consequently, that is a device that's regularly used in all levels of media to keep black folk in the status quo position of being an underclass.
Yeah.
Another third thing they use is they try to also to capture and push back, take away your black leadership. In America right now in 2019, we have absolutely no black leadership of any substance. We had a few doing history, starting off initially. We had
Man, they keep knocking them off, man. I mean, they keep knocking them off. Dr. King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Nat Turner. I mean, shoot, Tupac and Biggie. And the only thing they leave us with is some jokers. You know what I'm saying? That's all that's left.
Activists way back in the early 1800s, and a few in the 1700s, but they were just activists. There wasn't that many of them. In the 1800s, we got a few black, visible blacks, supposed to be black leaders. When about 1818, 1890s, when the evangelical movement went through this country in religion, whites said, well, we have a few blacks ministers. We'll choose them, let them be black leaders, and let them go to church. But also, when they go to church and those black ministers start talking or preaching, we got to make sure a white person is present, make sure he doesn't do anything that's misleading to those black folk, but they trying to direct them out of slavery or being free. And so those ministers came into effect starting about 1819, but their primary purpose was to mislead and contain black folk and to preach black folk about pie in the sky after death, and to be good, hard-working slaves, and to not expect anything on this earth, wait until death and get it then.
Yep.
And so those black ministers were leaders, even though they didn't have any education. They didn't understand race matters. But they were still black leaders up from
really just spiritual grifters, if you ask me, man.
From about 1818 up to about after the Civil War. Now, after the Civil War, when blacks got the right to vote, then now they could vote a few black officials in. They voted in about 16 blacks in the Congress, and secondly, any blacks that got appointed in positions like sheriffs or working for the post office, they became black leaders in the community.
Yeah.
And so we had a new kind of black leadership then. This kind of
the people,
public leadership on the public payrolls and public eyes, they sort of minimized the role of the black ministers and became leaders.
Yeah, that's how it should be, man. Yeah, that is how it should be, I would say. The people like the grassroots. That's what it's like. That's like the grassroots movement. And I don't know, man. I'm not gonna just jump the gun and say there is no grass. That's come on now. That's ridiculous. But I do want to say that we gotta the grassroots movements need to do their best, right, at becoming as nuanced and balanced minded as possible, and so that we ultimately can get the best solutions possible for our communities, right. So, but yeah, it's definitely in our best interest to keep the leaders on the grassroots basis, because anybody hired seems to be have other things in mind and other ways of getting by, besides focusing strongly on our communities and our people.
And that went on for a while, but then whites started pushing back, saying if we can't control blacks with the leadership we appoint for them, the leadership we allow to be elected or appointed to a public office, we'll start eliminating blacks.
Yep.
And that's why blacks that tried to be leaders, they were always eliminated.
Interesting.
That's why Marcus Garvey got wiped out.
Yeah.
Trying to be a black leader. Later on, you had Malcolm X got wiped out trying to be a black leader.
Got
Martin
that
Luther
right.
King got assassinated trying to be a black leader.
Got that
so
right.
Any black that they could not control, they would wipe him out physically through assassinations or eliminations. And last, but they had another trick the way they said, let's just simply control them.
Yeah.
What we do, we capture any black that has the potential of being
this is the word I'll never be able to remember. Manus mission. Ugh, geez, I butchered that one, boy.
leader. What we do, we co-opt them and offer them meritorious manumission.
Meritorious Manus mission. Let me rewind that. Say that again for me, my brother. One more time.
Of being a leader. What we do, we co-opt them and offer them meritorious manumission.
Meritorious fudge.
Of being a leader. What we do, we co-opt them and offer them meritorious manumission.
Meritorious Manus mission. Is that what he said?
Of being a leader. What we do, we co-opt them and offer them meritorious manumission.
Meritorious Manus mission. I need to freaking remember that freaking word. I heard it so many freaking times I can never remember it. Meritorious Manus mission. But yeah, it's essentially the concept of taking our leaders and using them against us. Using people that look like us, right? And then essentially using them and basically using our own people to be counterproductive towards our actual goals. I would say they will come along and give advice or align or misalign the prize. You know what I'm saying? They will come along and say, "Well, no, y'all black. We don't need preferential treatment in America. We got this. Let's just focus on equality amongst all people, and then we'll get swept along with the thing, and everything will be all fine and dandy for us Black Americans." Like meritorious Manus mission, right? I call those people agents. That's what I do. I call them agents. I call them people that essentially come along and tell us to vote or die. You know what I mean? They tell us that we need to be incite us to be rappers and incite us about all of this stuff and about all this stuff that ultimately doesn't mean anything, to spend our money, or they tell us to spend our money and sell our land and sell our property. I mean, even goes as far as the how do I word this? Because I got to be careful on how I say this. They even romanticize the idea of abortion. You know what I mean? And like these things have very, very real ramifications. Everything that looks good to us initially has a downside to it also. And they won't tell you about the downside. They only tell you about what's, the good sides of these things. Anybody that I would argue to say anybody that offers you advice that don't tell you the pros and the cons of all possible options is essentially not here. They're not your friend, right? They're not here for you to for your betterment. You know what I'm saying? So look out for those folks that are a product of meritorious Manus mission. I have to say this word as many times as I possibly can. Hold on.
of being a leader. What we do, we co-opt them and offer them meritorious manumission.
Meritorious man's mission. But yeah, they become agents. Don't be a product of the advancement of an agent. Thank you.
Put them in a major white corporation in a high-level position, or appoint them to Congress with the understanding, as they did in the 1870s, which says if you come to a public office, 3 things you cannot talk about if you're a black elected official or you're holding a public office.
Uh-oh.
You cannot come to this office talking about anything pertaining strictly and solely to black people. Point 1.
Whoa. You can't talk about anything. Oh, uh-oh. I do remember Kamala Harris saying that, we can't do anything specifically for a targeted group of people. I do remember that, even though you can do something that targets a group of people, you can do a lot of things that directly is to the detriment of a specific group of people. But you can't do anything that essentially make amends or restore that group of people that was essentially being wronged throughout generations and generations of being negatively affected by these programs, by these systems. Ain't that something? But yeah, very interesting.
You cannot talk about group issues and focus on blacks.
Can't talk about group issues.
And thirdly, you cannot talk about ways
hold on. You can't talk about group issues. Because they're trying to pass this facade of being like a colorless society where they don't see race or whatever like that. Really? Are we gonna? They're really playing. They really try to play that game, huh? All right.
You cannot talk about ways and holding white folk accountable for 360 years of slavery.
Wow. Okay, so that explains the Republican side of things. That explains the CRT stuff, because it's essentially holding white folks accountable for everything they've done to us over these many years. These many generations, rather.
In 1870, and nowadays in 2019, are holding them accountable for reparations.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 tactics they use and devices they use to eliminate black leadership and make them disappear. So after the 1960s civil rights movement, black folk got co-opted. The entire cadre of black leadership got co-opted, and they were taught to give up, encouraged to give up, saying give in to
the word I was trying to say earlier was conflate. That's the word I was trying to say earlier. It was conflate. So yeah, if you allow people, and oh god, I'm gonna have to edit this some way. If you allow people to be general with their words and be and all of that stuff, that essentially gives them leeway to essentially conflate your issues with adjacent black people's issues, right? Since we're talking about black people, this being Dr. Claude Anderson, they essentially allowed they use these really weird words, these broad ambiguous terms, to essentially misalign direct involvement with their mistreatment of black people. And it essentially lends to this idea to it kind of lends to this facade of being a society or a group or a nation that doesn't see color, right? And it essentially, and it also, again, it's all this is just one big kumbaya hand holding plan or idea or plan. We'll call it a plan to keep white people keep white people from being held accountable. That's what all this is. That's what all this is about. Plan from the very beginning and upheld through generations upon generations. Claude Anderson figured it out. I figured it out also. And I want everybody else to figure it out.
The facts and realities of white racism, and join us on a new concept called benign neglect or political correctness, which means take the focus off that you would have been put on black folk, put it on other groups.
So benign neglect and political correctness is somewhat synonyms, or is it just one of them is like an umbrella term for the other? Like benign neglect. Give me a moment. I need to check this out. This is gonna bother me.
But on minorities, those
Benign neglect. I don't know. How do you spell benign? Can somebody spell benign for me? Benign neglect. I really need to figure out how to zoom in, dude. I need to zoom in, Scoob. Oh, there we go. All right. Non-interference that is intended to benefit someone or something more than a continual attention would. Interference that is intended to benefit someone or something more than continual attention would. That's kind of weird. What does that mean? A shrub that grows well in shade and thrives under benign neglects. I need another definition because that one I ain't gonna lie, I got confused. uh, oh, here we go. So how do I unzoom? Oh, did I break my computer? Oh no, how do I unzoom? Hmm. This is unfortunate. Oh, here we are. Jeez Louise, I ask for 200%. Good gracious. All right, whatever. Yeah. Here we go. Oh, here we go. An attitude or policy of ignoring an often delicate or undesirable situation that one is held to be responsible for dealing with. Y'all see that? Y'all see that, right? Okay. Yeah. An attitude or policy ignoring an often delicate or undesirable situation that one is held to be responsible for dealing with. Yeah. Um, yeah. Man, first thing I'm thinking of is reparations. But like, yeah, like if you can just yeah, I mean, bro, like you can eat like you can say the what is that? The freaking United States what the freaking debt, the debt that we kind of get, the trillions of dollars of debt that America has accrued and stuff like that. Yeah, that's an example of benign neglect, man. They don't care. They don't care until maybe until it's too late. But I don't know. Very interesting.
broad terms again, women, gays, transsexuals, anything but black folk. And so consequently, black leadership disappeared. Another technique they use quite frequently is to, is to try to corrupt the Second Amendment and the second and use that against black folk, which
Second
says
Amendment.
again that gun control.
Yeah.
So the Second Amendment went into effect because they were controlling blacks with physically by whites having laws in effect that says basically that only whites can carry weapons and tools or any kind of fighting or defensive tactic or instrument. And so starting in about 1643, they passed laws saying that black folk are going to be slaves. You cannot have weapons. You cannot have
Yep.
any tools. You cannot have signaling murals. And then again, it was ratified again in about 1672, where it said every colony was passed laws saying that, called the Second Amendment, that would say that every white person, a white male between the ages of 18 and 42, must carry arms at all times. For what reason? To maintain slavery, to keep blacks under control. That
Yeah.
was called the Second
Wow.
Amendment of the Constitution. It was designed strictly and solely to maintain slavery and arm all whites, but yet at the same time say that no black can carry an arm or have a weapon at any time
Yeah.
to resist being enslaved.
Crazy.
That's in the Second Amendment of the Constitution. It's still popular even today. Now that everybody debates this question about gun control, and at the same time they're talking about gun control, what they you got to understand, out of about 367 million rifles and handguns in America, most 99.5% are owned by whites.
Yeah.
I remember we were on tour with the Thug tour, the first reality tour that we were on.
Whites own 99.5% of all the weapons. They produce all the weapons. They have all the bullets. They also have all the rifles, gun stores, and rifle and guns, weapons sales in the country. They own all the shooting ranges, and with the
Yeah.
few guns, handguns that black folk have, most of these cities are urged to do what? Tell black folk in those cities, go out and turn in your weapons and get a bag of groceries. If you got any guns, turn them in because you black folk are shooting it.
Yeah. Stop the violence programs. Yeah. There is a lot of things set in place to. Yeah. Yeah. One moment, please. Let me see something. Mm. Okay. All right. Apologies. Let's get back to it.
Shooting other blacks, and the way we're going to help you.
Oh yeah. Jeez. Um. Yeah. Yeah. Jeez. So this is my take on this whole stop the violence program and stuff like that. It's like when a system has been crafted to essentially disparage and target a specific group of people throughout generations upon generations, and whatever wealth they've accrued for themselves, whatever progress they've made, is essentially been torn down and ravaged by angry mobs and evil you know what I'm saying, racist people, right? Um, what that creates is a disenfranchised culture of people that are more or less scratching at the digging at, or I'm sorry, rummaging the bottoms of the economic. How do I explain this? This group is more or less left to rummage the bottom of the barrel of like what's left over in wealth in America, to even make it make it alive, right? To make a living, to stay above water, if you will. So with that, with this type of reality set in place, you know what I mean, it's gonna create a lot of it's going to create a lot of social economic problems, social or more or less social issues in itself. So if there's just no money, if there's no funding in these communities, the people within these communities are left with more or less nothing. They're more or less left with almost nothing. You're right. So with that said, in the event, right, that these people grab hold of weapons, you know what I mean? The fast and easy way of handling their immediate problems and their immediate threats. Yes, it's going to cause for a mass amount of violence all over the community, and it's going to be a big concern within these groups. You know what I mean? And which is what people don't understand. What people on the left don't understand is the left wingers. You know, well, not the left wingers, but the leftists and the socialist groups and the anarchist groups and all those other guys. They're anti-gun. You know what I mean? And what they don't understand is what they understand so well. They understand this, like, the systemic issues so well, but they don't understand. For some reason they just missed the point of how it affected gun ownership for blacks. Gun ownership for blacks is important, but okay. Let me reword that. Responsible gun ownership with blacks is important. That's what blacks need in America. That's the part. That's one of those conservative talking points that blacks need to adopt in order to keep this idea of to keep safety, to be safe in America. It just is what it is. Like, we can't expect to live in a society where everybody's always going to be nice and kind, and if in the event that there is an altercation, nobody's going to pull out a firearm, right? So it's in blacks people's best interest to have a firearm in the event that something were to pop off, right? So with that said, when the system crafts when the system essentially makes it so that blacks are socially at the very bottom, right? So far, the culture is literally so far gone today where we will essentially shoot at each other, right, in order to make a living, just to be able to eat, right? Obviously, there's going to be some people that's going to come together within the community and find alternatives to eat, right? Because like I said, the whole purpose for a lot of these young people is just to eat. So if you're gonna create a program where you will turn in a gun and you exchange your gun for groceries and stuff like that, then that essentially is you're disarming the community. You know what I mean? And I am an advocate for gun ownership. It just is what it is. You know what I mean? But again, it has to be safe and responsible gun ownership. Anyway, with that said, if we allow these people to essentially come in and find ways to disarm us, then that's essentially we're essentially going to be left with our pants down. You know what I mean? And while the dominant, more well-established cultures of people and while more well-off communities of people is like 10 times, 100 times more armed than we are. And essentially what that means is they're 100 times, maybe even 1,000 times more prepared and safe than we are. You feel me? So no firearm, man. That's you kind of left with your pants down. That's just the reality of it. And they've literally, the dominant societies, the government, right, or these oppressors have literally found a way to essentially disarm. They found a way for us to disarm ourselves, and that's just how deep, that's just how outrageous this whole system has spiraled out. You know what I mean? There's a YouTuber that goes by the name of the Maz Tour. His YouTube channel is called Black Guns Matter, right? And he more or less is preaching the good. He's spreading the good word, right? His whole thing is responsible gun ownership, responsible gun awareness, safety first, and all that stuff. He's talking about the stuff that matters. You know what I mean? And I know like a lot. I mean, it's like when I talk about gun ownership with my homies and stuff like that. It's always, oh yeah, I got my gun. It's like, I'm ready. I'm strapped. And I'm like, that's cool, right? But what do you know about gun safety? Like, have you done any like gun safety courses? Like, what do you know about like just the myriad of the topics that surround like responsible gun ownership and stuff like that? And it's like it's crickets. You know what I mean? And that's not good enough. You feel me? So again, he's talking about like disarming black folk, you know what I mean? And to be honest, and the wild part about it is we're finding ways to disarm ourselves. And left wing, the socialists, the leftist side of our communities, they need to kind of get on task. They need to, hey, y'all, they need to get on code with like this Black Guns Matter situation.
You all is to urge you to turn in your guns, and we'll give you a bag of groceries. That goes on quite frequently.
See, told you, grab a bag of groceries for your weapon. Called it.
Urban areas across America, but they've never done that for whites. When you go into a typical white home in the South, you might find 15 or 20 rifles and 2 or 3 handguns, and but nobody ever put out a program in the rural areas of America,
really,
in the white country, saying, we'll give you a sack of groceries if you turn in your weapons and eliminate any opportunities for people to be killed or to kill other people using the weapons or handguns or rifles. That's another way of controlling black folk, an advice that's used to keep them separated and keep them harmless, and that way keep them under control.
Yeah.
That device is again called using the 14th Amendment the Second Amendment of the Constitution to control them by threats that they know that whites are prepared that in case of a race war, that black folk are totally unarmed and totally ill-prepared to defend themselves in a race war in the United States.
Crazy.
They know that. That's why black folk will never find gun stores or gun shops in a black neighborhood. And everybody's going to try to strip blacks of their weapons so that they'll be totally ill-prepared to defend themselves in case of a race riot or a race war. So that technique is another way of maintaining the racial status quo in America. Another technique they use is always fabricate minorities, and so that when any program comes out that could possibly benefit blacks, whether it could have been the New Deal of the 1930s or the Great Society program in the 1960s or any program that comes out, first thing I do is say that the program can't be specifically for black folk.
Yeah,
it's got to be for everybody.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier about Kamala Harris. You know what I mean? Black folks came to her, hey, we want, what do y'all think about reparations? Like, is this something that's like a possibility? And she's like, nah, can't do anything specifically for any ethnicity of people. I beg to differ.
You said, what's everybody? Well, what we're gonna do now is that rather than it used to be just.
In case anybody that watches this doesn't agree with me, look no further than Native Americans. Look no further than the Orientals or East Asians, right?
Black, whites. Let's magnify that. So anybody who's been discriminated against is eligible to receive any benefits that black folk could have received. And so what they do to fabricate all these minorities. So now everybody can be equal to black folk, not based on racism, but based on another thing they use called discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for me to get set up for therapy, and I use this room as my office. But the desk is over here, and so
I use this mouse to skip
the
ad.
This is the background. I have my therapy session, which is virtual.
And somehow make discrimination equal to racism, which there's no way it could be. Discrimination is a natural human process. Anybody can discriminate. Everybody must discriminate to be able to exist and interact with their environment and with the general society. You discriminate on what kind of ice cream you're going to buy, what kind of clothes you're going to buy, what kind of car you want to buy. Everybody discriminates. And yet I see on a regular basis some kind of admonishment in the media saying we got to eradicate all forms of discrimination. That is totally, absolutely insane and impossible. You cannot eradicate discrimination because every human being must be capable of discriminating to make decisions. But they use that technique, and that way black folk get confused because they don't understand what's going on when you equate racism with discrimination.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I see what I know what he's talking about. But more or less, yeah. They're much like what they did with the term woke, right? What the right did with the term woke. You see, the term woke started off as a black thing, right? Well, if somebody calls you woke in a black culture, that means you were aware of, you were aware of how I want to put this. Yeah, if a black person called you woke, that more or less meant that you are aware of like the systems and the powers that essentially work against marginalized groups of people, right? You were aware of like some people would say the Illuminati, right? So other people would say like the Boule. I mean, just maybe some overly head ass terms and stuff like that. Maybe like you're in touch with your ancestors or something like that. But like I would say the more nuanced or the more rational, right? The more rational aspect of being woke is being made aware of the mistreatment of black Americans in the United States of America. You know what I mean? Or being aware. Well, that's what a black person would mean when they would call you woke. Now, other places probably call, you could probably, if you kind of want to make it a more general definition, you can just kind of say you understand like what groups of people are in power that ultimately influence and move the tides of like the overall socio-economic makings of America, if that makes sense, right? And that's what woke would typically kind of mean from a rational sense. Now, what Republicans have done with the term woke, or the right, what you want to call them, they turned the term woke into essentially what they don't like, right? They turn anybody who says things that they don't like, that the right does not like, is now woke. And that's essentially what the government and our oppressors, right, have done to the word racism. According to Dr. Claude Anderson, right? They more or less conflated, right? That word I couldn't find earlier. They took the word racism and they conflated it with discrimination. Racism is actually something that when studied properly, right, has a lot of what kind of bring us to a lot. How do I word this? It would essentially, how do I word this? It would more or less kind of teach us the things that critical race theory teaches us, right? It essentially criminalizes white folks in America. You know what I mean? What Donald Trump said, it makes people hate America, or whatever you want to call it. No, this is it's reality. You know what I mean? It's not. Who cares if it makes people hate America? This is stuff that we need to talk about in order to progress properly in America. You know what I mean? And they'd be surprised at what will happen if we actually start taking the voices of the disenfranchised to heart, and to actually give people the proper ear to air out our grievances, right? Anyway, as I was saying, they took the word racism and they perversed it. In other words, right? They turned it into something that was completely disaligned with the reality, or what its intended use was supposed to be.
Those two things have nothing in the world to do with each other. but black folk have yet to understand fully what racism is. And in our future conversation, what we're going to talk about, I'm going to go back and give you the history of racism and show you the difference between discrimination and racism.
Yeah.
What people are telling you nowadays is that there's no difference, that discrimination is the same as racism, that bias is the same as racism, that being opposition or not liking somebody is racism.
Yep.
Those things have nothing in the world to do with racism. We're going to talk about it in part 2 on our program. I'm going to have to stop at this point, and this is part 1. I got
All right.
a whole bunch of
That's
other
part
devices
1.
to talk about with you, and we come back next week. Come back and join me on this YouTube, and let's finish up. I probably only got through about 3 or 4 today. I'm gonna probably bring up about 19 or 20 things that they're using to make sure that nothing changes for black folk in America.
Okay.
That's why in this country you're in exactly the same position you were in 1861. You are now a permanent underclass.
Permanent
And where
underclass.
you used to be second-class citizens, that a massive, unending influx of immigrants in this country has pushed you from being a second-class citizens down to third-class citizens. And in about another 4 or 5 years, Arabs and Middle Eastern are going to get together with Asians, and they're going to push you from being third-class citizens down to fourth-class citizens. That way you're going to
Down the pecking order.
still be in the same construct at the bottom. All these devices that we use to keep you where you are, which is totally dependent on other people, especially the dominant white society, for your daily needs, your daily food and substance. But we're going to talk about that as we move on. But this was part 1. We're going to go through part 2 and maybe even part 3 to get through all these points I'm going to make about the devices that a company use to make sure black folks stay a subordinated, exploited, dependent group of people in America, that anybody can enrich themselves and use them to elevate their race, their culture, their language, and their gender above black folk. I thank you and have a good evening.
Ooh, bars.
Yeah. That you can do. Oh, that's OD. I learned how to do that. All right. Black Opportunities Part 2. So this is a quickie. This one only 7 minutes. Then we're going to close it out with this video. Already been streaming for about 2 hours. Oh, so let's get through it. Black Opportunities Part 2. Yes, yeah, here we go. If you appreciate Dr. Claude Anderson's work, please like this video, subscribe to his channel. It's his official channel, and tell others. Absolutely. Please tell everybody about Dr. Claude Anderson, everybody that you know. Open up the dialogue about this man, and the more people that's talking about him and his solutions, the sooner we can achieve the best possible solutions for black Americans.
Hi, welcome again to my YouTube channel, Connecting the Dots. I'm Dr. Claude Anderson, your host. I'm going to pick up now on part 2 of what are devices that were used to constrain and to maintain the racial status quo in America. Now, I left where I left off after about, I don't know how many I went through, but let's pick up about at least 3 or 4 more of these points, because there's so many I can't get through all of them in 2 or 3 parts. But let's pick up another one. Another common way they try to maintain the status quo in black folk is to direct black folk into involved in symbolic, insignificant, wheel-spinning kind of activities that leads to nothing. That can be everything from marches, just to march and express your displeasure, or protest marches where there's no tangible goal that's been spelled out, where you got millions of people marching, and you say, marching for what? There's no answer. And so black folk engage in all these symbolic issues, or for instance, they can even march because of something that occurred 20 years ago.
Man, I remember. We're gonna talk about Malcolm X too. We're gonna do some Malcolm X talking. I'm gonna like I said earlier. I'm gonna spend probably an episode. I'm probably gonna spend a stream talking about listening to Thomas Sowell. But we're gonna be taking a dip. We're gonna dive into Malcolm X and his speeches. But he spoke about this. He spoke about the Million Man March. You know, he spoke about these things. Well, not the Million Man March. The March on Washington, I believe. And you know, it's like, hey, what is this gonna do? What solutions is this gonna provide for black Americans? because when everybody gonna march, everybody gonna listen to Dr. King, and everybody's gonna go home, and nothing's gonna become of it. You know what I mean? So it's like, but what the real power comes from Shimoni's, Shimoni. That's where the influence is gonna come from. You wanna influence somebody, you gotta have some cash, bro. It's as simple as that.
Well, and they marched it because somebody was shot or killed or beaten. And you said, what's the goal? Nobody knows, but they're engaged in it. But the worst part about it, that they try to direct you into, is try to get black folks engaged in things that are non-definable, like in marches, like particularly the civil rights movement, like marching for equality.
Equality.
What is equality? What is equality? How do you determine when you got equality?
Oh,
What are you looking for in equality? And when white folks in the old days, in civil rights days, I can recall very distinctly when I was over education in the state of Florida, you ask
Equality.
white people, say, what do you people want? And black folks would say, we want equality. What else do you want? We want equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
What else do you want? We want to be
Vote.
somebody.
Oh, be
And
somebody.
so what white folk was trying to say, okay, since we got the power and wealth, y'all proclaim that we are superior, we're going to grant you everything you ask for. Abracadabra, make all black folk equal. Abracadabra, give them equal opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Abracadabra, make them equal
Alakazam.
with the whites. Now get the hell out of here. You got what you need. Don't come back.
Isn't that amazing?
So like, bro, he said, they said, hey, now you are somebody. Now get the fuck out of my face. Like, are you serious? Like, that's crazy, bro. Like, this is the problem of like whack leaders, man. That this is what happens when your group gets infiltrated by agents. You get behind them, you rally behind them, and they misdirect you. Like, you finally get an audience with like the people that can make the changes, and they squander the opportunity. You feel me? It's over with. They squandered the opportunity, and you'll never get that opportunity again. Congratulations, you played yourself.
They didn't give you anything because you see, you didn't ask for anything that was tangible and measurable. You didn't say, I want this. I want to know something that I can measure and I can take to the bank, that I can have in my hands and hold, and that I can have a value in, because they always trick us to getting involved in equality and equal opportunity.
And more importantly, build generational wealth off of. Right? Just saying.
And what they fail to tell you is that you live in a race-based society. You cannot, in theory and practice, get equality and equal opportunity in a race-based society. The whole point of racism, of being in a race is a contest. It's when people engaging in a competitive activity.
Spoke about that earlier.
A horse race, a bicycle race, an automobile race.
It is a money race. It is a wealth race. It is a race to be the last man standing. That's what this race is about.
Competing. And the whole point in racism is not to create equality. It's the primary point of racism is to create inequality.
Yeah.
That's why
inequality. What he means is to create opportunities for your group. That's what a race-based society is. That's what a race is. That's what racism is. Racists are those that participate in the race. You feel me? My thing is, all I'm trying to, I don't like the negative connotations of being called a racist, but I do want everybody to understand that they are participating in a race, whether they like it or not. Right?
You go to the horse race, the Kentucky Derby, you line all the horses up together and say, now, when the gun goes off, you horses start running and run around the tracks. When you get to the end, we want to identify the one who comes in first place, or comes in show or place, win, show or place. Now, nobody wants to expect all those horses to come in at the same time.
Nope,
that would be foolish.
It's impossible.
That defeats the purpose of having a race. It's for everybody to start out equal and come in equal. Can't happen. But unfortunately, our people look for equality and look and say, well, we want to catch up. And so in the race, black folks say, well, if we're looking for equality and equal opportunity, and we're in a race, let's just run along and look behind us and say, everybody catch up, catch up.
That doesn't make any sense, man. Like it's like I don't know why, I don't know how they managed to do it, but like we cannot be the ambassadors of equal opportunities, right? Like we did enough trailblazing already. Dr. King, that should have been it. We should he got the Nobel Peace Prize. We should be getting standing ovation from every group in this nation. Every ethnic group in this nation, each and every one of them. And I'm not talking about we as in black people. I'm talking about we as in foundational black Americans. Foundational black Americans should be receiving a round of applause from Nigerians, Ghanaians, Japanese, Chinese, Vietnamese, oh man, Latino, Guatemalan, every Canadian. Every nation under the sun that found solace in America need to be patting foundational black Americans on the back for ushering in equality. That's we should be done with the equality argument. Black folks should not have to carry the burden of being the ambassadors of equality. It's like now, like I said, now LGBT, plus are looking to black people to assist them with this equality stuff. You know what I mean? Like we don't need to be equal. We don't need to be helping everybody finish the race along with us. We black folks are damn near last place. Like who the hell is behind us to help that we need to help carry along to essentially let them pass ahead of us. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, how many more times that's gonna end up happening? They already said we start off as like the number 2 in this race post Emancipation Proclamation. Then a couple of these groups, like, they passed us up. You know what I'm saying? Not just in wealth, but also in population. So I'm just saying we're done. We did everything we were supposed to do regarding bringing equality to America. Thanks primarily to Dr. Martin Luther King. Now let's focus on ourselves, please.
I'm in front. Y'all need to catch up with me so we can all come in together. It is foolish and it's silly, but every time I hear a black person talking about what they're looking for in terms of race matters, they're looking for equality, equal opportunity. You cannot get equal opportunity and equality in a race-based society. Go for yourself. Get out front, run as fast as you can, and try to get to the finish line as fast as you can.
As fast as you can.
And do not look back and try to pull everybody else along with you. Every other group in America is competing with you. They're competing for the ownership and control of resources, wealth, and power. The greatest power in this nation is wealth power.
Yes.
If you get out front, get as much wealth as you can, and try to pull as many of your people along, but you cannot all come in at the same time.
Not at all. And like I said, I hear so many people say money isn't everything. I suppose you're right. But would you live in America under a capitalistic society where capital literally runs this country? A lot of people would beg to differ. I hate to break it to you, but a lot of people would beg to differ. And as a matter of fact, well, you know what? And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they won't beg to differ. But the people that won't beg to differ are the people that want you to stay in the borderline destitute position that you're in that you're in currently.
They said, well, Dr. Anderson, that we believe in socialism. Why would you want to be practicing socialism in a capitalist society?
Sorry, FD Signifier. Sorry, Turb. Sorry, what's the other guy name? The Caribbean guy. And you guys many cohorts and stuff like that and allies. Listen, bro. I get it. I do understand it. I get it. Under capitalism, a lot of bad things has happened to black people. I completely understand. Redistribution of redistribution the means of production to the workers sounds great, but unfortunately, this is not going to happen over some conversations. It is simply not going to happen. The slave ship that is known as capitalism in America is just entirely too big to turn around, right? To steer in a new direction. America has more or less started capitalistic, and it's going to be capitalistic for a really, 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 really long time until that ship finally changes direction. Like if this isn't a freaking canoe, right? Where you can just right, change direction in your little canoe. No, this is like one of those giant freaking one of those giant ships, right? That carries like a whole bunch of freaking goods and stuff like that. The joke, them Johns that literally take like a whole hour, or 2 hours or something like that to be able to make a 90-degree turn or whatever, right? America is not changing into socialism anytime close to being soon. It's just not gonna freaking happen. And in my opinion, you guys are kind of wasting your time. You know what I'm saying? But hey, by all means, I do appreciate you guys for knowing y'all Black history. Y'all are the shit at Black history. That y'all are really good at that. But as far as reality is concerned, as far as right now is concerned, blacks need to focus on blacks need to strategize ways of making it in this capitalistic system as it stands today.
That you want to be an island of socialism in a sea of capitalism. Everybody in the world is trying to be is capitalistic. Russia.
I gotta say something real quick too, and I'm probably gonna edit this out in a real video. But some of these, I like to ask the guys that actually managed to get their attention in the comment section. I asked them, "Hey, you know anything about Dr. Claude Anderson? Like, what do you think about Dr. Claude Anderson?" Crickets. They don't say anything about Dr. Claude Anderson because Dr. Claude Anderson is the black economist, the pro-black economist. I mean, after that one video I shared about his whole interpretation of how space is black, he turned space into a black empowerment speech. That was OD. He's the one pro-black economist that's preaching pro-black reparations. And they don't want to say, it's like they try to ignore this man's existence. Why? Because they don't have an answer to it. Well, and that's what my program, that's what this is going to be about. That's what my group podcast is going to be about. It's going to be more or less regurgitating the preachings of Dr. Claude Anderson. So let's go.
Russia used to be practice socialism. So did China. They were communist countries, socialistic. They got away from it. Now some of the most competitive capitalist nations on earth are Russia, China, and even North Korea. Everybody's competing to get ownership and control of wealth and power. Nobody's looking for any equality, equal opportunities, but black folk. But yet our people still are being taught and encouraged by civil rights organizations and political candidates that look for equality and equal opportunity. No, you tell them, I want to look for self-interest first. Get my people out front, make them come in first, and don't worry about who's going to be behind them in second place and third place. Go for the rope, go for the gold, and cross the rope and get the gold. And that's why I tell black folks, stay away from.
Everybody else do it. You feel me? Like literally every other group does it. Like you can look at Chicago, man. Every group that sticks with each other, whether they'll tell you or not, you know what I mean. Them sticking together and creating and crafting and building their own communities within their own little groups and stuff like that. They're practicing this group economics. They're practicing this form of racism that's essentially trying to keep. They're participating in this horse race, this foot race, this competition that we call racism.
From anything that's as intangible that you can't measure and count and take to the bank. Go for what you can take to the bank and count and enrich your people with more wealth. We have 1/2 of 1%. We should have enough wealth in our hands that will be equal to our population. We're about 13% of the world of this country's population.
Yeah.
Try to own and control as much value and wealth as you have in your population number. Not only in this country, same thing with African countries. African countries in the same boat. I guess blacks in Africa own about 1/2 of 1% of the wealth, just like we have 1.5% of wealth in America. But isn't it sad that collectively, if I tie all the blacks in the world together?
I don't know. I think we're at 4% now in 2023. I believe there's been some progress made. I know. I mean, black people are really taking this business thing into. They're really kicking it. You know what I mean? They're really punching the gun with this black empower. Well, not black empower. Black entrepreneurial spirit. You know, the owning businesses and stuff like that. That stuff is really going. You know. I mean, we've always been a blessed people, like athletically, entertainment, you know, entertaining and all that stuff, and like we know how to get the bag, you know. It's just that the system is just so far rigged against us, and we're so brainwashed to not want to do business with each other, you know. But like I said, the system in itself makes it so that the dominant societies is always going to get their cut out of the money, our sweat, you know. And this is what it is. Like we're gonna have to. That's why I more or less say that we need to just focus on our own. We have to just focus on our own self-interest, and not necessarily. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to step on other people's toes to get there. You know what I mean? That just means we need to just again focus on ourselves and look out for each other. You know. But again, that does not mean we need to be imposing on other groups, especially, and that includes white folks. You know what I mean? This just is what it is. We're gonna have to do this. We're gonna have to do business with all groups of people and all types of people. And it's that's just kind of the way it is. But at the very least, try to give your people a little bit of goodwill, a little bit of grace, right?
Between blacks in Africa, blacks in the Caribbean, and black in America, you get about 24% of the world population. And even with 24% of the world's population, to show you how bad it is, what the great disparity is, and the inequality is that with 24% of the population collectively, people of African descent around the world, you still own and control 1/2 of 1%.
Yes, sir.
So quit trying to be equal to all other people. Try to be independent. Confine your interests and your goals to yourself and your own people. Get out ahead in front and run as fast as you can, and don't look back.
Yes, sir.
Notion has been the centerpiece of my workflow. It's quite literally an extension of my brain. I can take
This mouse extension of my finger. What's this junk? Yeah, man. That about does it for me, man. I didn't talk too much. It's about we 2 hours and 20 minutes of talking. But yeah, man, that's Dr. Claude Anderson for you, bro. I mean, hold on one moment. I'm trying to find my freaking playlist here. The subscriptions, explore. Where is my super suit? Okay. One moment, please. Sound files. Here we are. Yeah. So as I was saying, man. That's Dr. Claude Anderson for you. I mean, shit, God tier strategies, bro. It's as simple as that. God tier strategies. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. No, there's no argument for this stuff. There's literally no argument for it. Other groups have been practicing this since the very beginning, you know, and we're the ones that have not. Well, we've practiced it, but like we're the only group that have been targeted to fail. You know, we are the planned minority group in America. We are the only group that's been essentially disenfranchised our entire times of being here. And when we bring up things like reparations, when we bring up things like being stripped of the right to generational wealth, when we bring up the defense or the causality of our current conditions in America, we get laughed at. You know, we get told we're lazy. We get told to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps. We have to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps, and we weren't even given boots to begin with.
Isn't that amazing?
Everybody else been given boots, man. Yeah, literally everybody else has been given boosts, and arguably with a lot of the things that kind of were given to other groups of people, like the Homestead Act, like the preferential treatment that foreigners get, and those who have received their green card, and there's literally government incentives like grants that's given to these people that come from these other countries to settle into their find solace in America, Africans included, right? But when black folk ask for just a smidge back, you know what I mean? We're getting told we're lazy, and we get told that don't what is that thing called affirmative action, and that white women benefit the most from, and Section 8 and all these other programs that they say black folks take part in and stuff like that. Isn't that your reparations? They would say. Well, no, because everybody gets access to those things. Like, what will be true reparation, right, for the injustices enacted upon Black Americans is going to be the preferential legislation that specifically targets Black Americans. And I only have come to that conclusion by way of listening to the great and the powerful Dr. Claude Anderson. May he forever, may he forever. What am I trying to say? Long live Dr. Claude Anderson. I'm out here, baby. Deuces. Y'all like my new sound effects? Like, check this one out. This is my this is my favorite one.
My pussy aches.
I made in case folks didn't know that yet. This is actually me with my with the Clownfish app. You can speak into the app, and then you can adjust your voice to make it sound really what's the word to even describe this?
My pussy aches.
What is that?
My pussy aches.
I ain't gonna tell y'all what a pussy means. What's my other favorite? This is probably my second favorite one.
Beta baby.
This is my cousin Justin. I told you about this one.
Ooh, power.
Isn't Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing?
It's amazing. I'm going to sleep, man. Y'all keep me up too late.
Boy.